Best Hunter.
What I'm gonna do today is give you guys some context. I've been in Logic Pro for over 10 years and I've been in Ableton for over 4.5 years. And I've recently switched over to Ableton full-time within the last 1.5 years. And I'm just gonna walk you guys through both of these DAWs and just kind of shed some light on both because I still think both are fire. However, there are some things that have changed my life since moving over to Ableton. So let's start over with Logic Pro. Let's start with their new stuff. Let's get into that. So right now they've been pushing this ChromaGlow, which is their saturation plugin to emulate some outboard gear and stuff like that. So we got a drum loop, and I love applying saturation on drums because it's like the most transparent to see how it affects the sound. So let's get into that. So that's dry. Here's some ChromaGlow, and let's turn it on. Here we go. Now, I talked about this before in my first impressions. This, you have to tweak it, all right? Like, out the box, it's not happening. Like, this sounds horrible out of the box. If you tweak it, you can get a nice touch. Now, let's come over here to Ableton, and they've dropped their joint, and it's called Roar. This is their new saturation-based plugin. All right, now let's turn on Roar. Here we go. Bro. So the next thing I'm going to get into that most people don't really talk about is the external device factor. So Apple's way of exploring external devices is via their iPad. Now I'm currently using Logic Remote. Now this is really dope for remote controls. Now this gives you the instrument functionality. All right, we do have instrument functionality. There is 0 latency, and this is dope. I do not like the instrument functionality. Same thing with their keys. We can pull up a piano here. When it comes down to sounds, raw sounds, libraries like this, I love the way Logic does it. It's super dope. Now, when it comes down to their external device type deals, all right, this is just not gonna fly for me. I'll just be 100% honest. Now what we can do is chord strips. I'm going to talk about the strengths of Logic Remote in just a second. With Ableton, what they've done is they've made 100% MPE instruments, which is fire. Really nice. All right, super dope. And we have this new effect where we can basically slide up and down. Now, Ableton has done a phenomenal job with the Push series. I'm currently using the Push 3. This is the standalone version. It's way more convenient and way more intuitive. Most people do not like Session View in Ableton, and I understand why, because it's sort of confusing to look at. But what we'll do is we'll actually record a little bit of something, and I want to show you guys how simple it is. All right, then we can just bank over and add more stuff to it. Now, if you want to go on the deep dive in Ableton here and learn all these different things that I was talking about, you might want to check out my Viral Sound Masterclass. Now, that's where I break down all of my chord progressions, I break down my bass lines and how to come up with them. And this is only to empower you. If you want to take your production to the next level and you want to unlock the Ableton code along the way, then the Viral Sound Masterclass is definitely the class for you, I'm telling you. And most importantly, it has a community that is growing at large. We have about 82 people in the community and it's growing so fast at the time of shooting this video. I'll leave that tagged for you guys so you can check it out at your leisure, and I appreciate you. And if you do decide to enroll, I'll see you on the other side in the community, and I can't wait to have you. Now in Logic, you can do the same thing, but it don't smack the same way. All right, so we have the ability to see our instrument and see the clip that we're launching. However, the downfall of this is Logic's setup is vertical. So our instrument tracks go downward instead of horizontally. So this actually hurts us in the end because on the pad, we can't see all of our clips and go to the next thing. We're sort of locked into where we are at the moment, and you have to do a lot of hurdles. So this is a bit more cluttered than just simply doing this in Ableton. If we're just talking about raw remote controls, let's say with our mixer, all right, this is really dope because when I record live drums, and I'm going to do a double whammy for Logic on this where it shines in this scenario. We can come in here in Logic, and let's say I wanted to record some drums. I'm going to do 13 tracks, and let's change this to audio, micro line. I want these to be ascending, and then hit create. Now, in Ableton, I would have to make a template to do this, all right? Otherwise, I would be sitting in Ableton going one by one, doing Command T, Command T, Command T, and going one input at a time and assigning them, versus just having it all done in one swap and then be able to cut drums. I always record my drums away from the computer. So I use my iPad as my transport device to be able to record. And it records everything. Super dope. We can hit stop. Boom. And if I messed up, I can come over here and hit the back button, and that undoes it. Now here's a big one that most Ableton users do not know about. When I watch Ableton users put Logic Pro head to head, they don't know about Logic Pro's bounce in place functionality, which is really sort of unbeatable right now. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I want to convert this to an audio track, this drum loop, all I have to do is do Control B, hit OK, and boom, we get an audio track. And it doesn't delete the previous MIDI track. So if we want to go back and add some stuff later, it's already there. Now there's some workarounds in Ableton for something like this. So what we would have to do is right click on this and do freeze and flatten. Now what this does is it immediately turns this into audio, which is great, but it also deletes the previous MIDI track. So a way around that would be you could do Command T, and then we can do track freeze. So we can do Shift, Option, Command F. This is going to freeze the track, and then we can just Option drag it down, and we get the equivalent as Logic Pro. So it's a little bit of an extra step. So Ableton, yo, we need a functionality where we can simply just bounce in place, and not just bounce in place one thing, but multiple tracks. So here's what I mean. Drag this down, and then we can highlight everything and then do Control B, and we can name this Sum. And watch what happens. It literally took all of those tracks and summed it down to one stereo track, and it kept all of the MIDI. The last thing I'm going to get into is the nitpicky stuff, but it makes a lot of sense. So when we're editing Ableton definitely has the one up, and I'll show you what I mean. So let's say I wanted to add some hi-hat stutters and rolls to this, all right? What I would have to do is come up here to the grid and basically change it to, let's say, 30-second note. Now this grid corresponds to that, and now I can add in some extra notes. And then if I want to add or go to a 24th note, then you have to keep clicking this grid and changing it accordingly that way. All right, it's a lot of work to get that to happen. Now in Ableton, what we can do is we can come over here to our MIDI, and what we can do is use Command 1 and Command 2 to change our grid. When you zoom in, this actually increases the grid value by default. So I'm going to change this to Command 2, and we're going to go to a 30-second note and just add it in like that. All right, now what we can also do is, let's say we want to change this to a 24th note. We can actually do Command 2 again, and then do Command 3. This will change it to a triplet. And I can take this hi-hat and stretch it all the way across, and then do Command E, and it'll automatically change it to a triplet. All right, and same thing, we can change the grid back, so we can do Command 3, and let's do let's say a 64th note. Then I can stretch this note all the way across, and then do Command E. Here we go. Really, really convenient. So in terms of precision workflow, I'm definitely going to give this over to Ableton. Now, Logic Pro 11 just introduced stems on us, and we do not have this feature in Ableton, unfortunately. So by default, that feature is going to go to Logic because Ableton doesn't have it. I hope that this shines some light on it, and if you got any type of value from this video, go ahead and give your boy a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on those bell notifications, especially if you want to learn how to become an independent musician and engineer and be able to release your own music and make money. Yo, this is the channel for you because we cover all these different things. Thank you so much for y'all time, man, and I'll holler at y'all in the next video. Peace.